Podcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, we are at the top of the hour, so welcome everyone. My name is Sharon Shelton. I'm the Vice President of Marketing here at Entrinsik, and I'm joined today by Andrew Morvati, who is our Chief Solutions Architect. We're glad you're here. So thanks for taking a few minutes out of your day. I can imagine how busy you are. For this brief webinar, we wanted to keep it brief intentionally to show you how Informa 5 can help you modernize your multi-value application. But first, a little housekeeping. There are quite a few people on the line, so the lines are muted to cut down on background noise. But feel free to type in your questions as we go. There's a questions box on the lower right-hand side of your screen, and we'll be sure to respond to your questions during the Q&A portion of the webinar. And just also so you know, this session is being recorded and will be available on our website within about 24 to 48 hours. So let's go ahead and get started. For those of you unfamiliar with Entrinsik, we've been in the software business for quite a while, working with multi-value databases for most of that time, developing information management solutions for several industries, including higher education, which we have a very strong presence in, insurance, manufacturing and distribution, many different industries, healthcare, but also many other industries through our network of over 20 partners. Informa was introduced back in 2001, and we released version 5 back in August of 2017. And this new version was essentially architected to simplify the process of accessing and cleansing and blending and analyzing data from multiple sources and making it much, much more intuitive to actually get to the information that you need. Over 1,500 organizations use our software worldwide, and like I said, we have over 20 partners who are either selling Informa alongside their own industry-specific ERP, or they've embedded Informa within their solution to create a cohesive analytics environment. We're consistently highly rated on independent review sites like Software Advice, which is a Gartner company. Several accolades that we're pretty proud of. And we are consistently ranked highly, particularly for ease of use, for Informa's self-service capabilities, and for our competitiveness, actually. And there's plenty of customer videos and case studies and third-party reports. They're all on our website if you'd like to learn a little bit more about who we are and what we do. So as I mentioned, Informa is a reporting and data analysis platform and essentially enables you to aggregate all of your disparate data using a single platform. And what this does is it creates a cohesive, curated, governed data hub for your, so that you can push out data analysis throughout your entire organization. Informa connects to multi-value databases, SQL, any JDBC, ODBC, REST APIs, CSVs shared on the network, really virtually any source of data Informa can connect to. And once the data is accessed, it can then be curated into what we call data sets. So like I said, we understand multi-value, right? So we know even though it's a legacy database, multi-value data has a structure and a purpose. And that structure needs to be retained by the reporting software that's presenting this data, right? And most solutions that deal with SQL data, many of our competitors, which as you know is normalized, won't be able to do this, or at least not be able to do it easily. But Informa does, and we'll show you how in a couple of minutes. And you don't even need to know multi-value because Informa enables you to surround the database with a robust metadata layer. So you don't need to know the ins and outs of multi-value. Informa knows it for you. You can bring back as much data as you wish from any data source. You can prepare the data using data flow steps, which allow you to transform the data in multiple ways. You can narrow down, pare down data views using filtering. And the data sets are what drive the visuals. They create one curated version of the truth that everyone can report off of. And you can refresh the data anytime you wish, on demand or on a schedule. So once the data sets have been created, you want to secure the content. And you can simply integrate it with your LDAP or Active Directory, or you can add members individually. The content is owned and shared, so there's accountability, there's traceability, there's transparency. Essentially, like I was saying, one version of the truth, which is what many organizations struggle with. You can share data sources and data sets with teams, whether it's the human resources department or the marketing department. You create governed access to the data. So you can restrict sensitive data, for example, social security numbers. You can give levels of access to users on teams by setting role permissions. The granularity is pretty impressive. You can clean up the data, like I said before, using data flows. And what all this does, again, is it creates a single source of clean, vetted, traceable data. So once the data is secured, you can enable anyone who has access rights to explore the data without any IT experience necessary. Someone like me, who's a marketing geek without a lot of IT experience, it's very easy for me to use Informer. I use Informer 5 against our sugar database to slice and dice and manipulate the data in any number of ways. So this offloads the need for me to rely on IT to get the information that I need. So this, potentially in your environment, would offload the need for your users to rely on IT or consultants to get the information they need in the way that they need it. Informer provides powerful tools that enable you to quickly create interactive trend charts, multi-series charts, traditional spreadsheet style grids, graphs and maps with global colors, and really any kind of custom visual can be created via plugins. So you can know at any point in time what's happening throughout your organization. You can easily filter to select the data that you want to see, viewed side-by-side analysis in a comparison board, and you can drill down into the underlying data found in the source databases for a deeper understanding. And for a personalized, I like this part, for a personalized view of real-time information, simply add visuals to an Informer dashboard, your own Informer dashboard, and customize the layout. You can drag and drop or pin favorite reports to your Informer homepage so you can immediately go to it without any problem. So really, in a nutshell, Informer is 100% web-based reporting and data analysis and dashboarding solution, accesses multiple databases, allows non-IT users like me to quickly customize and create their own reports on the fly as we need them. We can uncover critical insights and real-time information as the information changes so that we can make the most up-to-date, most informed business decisions. Implementation is quick and easy and return on investment, and this is what many of our customers cite in case studies and reviews. The return on investment is pretty impressive. And bottom line, we know MultiValue, right? So I want to stop talking and now give Andrew an opportunity to show you a little bit of what Informer 5 looks like. And again, this is just a taste of the interface. If you want a more comprehensive demo or even a trial so that you can see how it would work in your own environment, you can feel free to reach out to us. But I'll turn it over to Andrew.
Oh, thank you, Sharon. Thank you, everyone, for stopping by today and checking out some Informer with me. Just want to say at the beginning, this is going to be a fairly simple demo in terms of connectivity to MultiValue, but if you have what I would call more complicated or specific questions at the end, there should be some time to ask those, so please, no question is too complicated. If the sound is bad or anything like that, please let us know. So this is the login screen to Informer. I'm going to log in as the administrator, and I'm immediately going to take us to a data set. This data set is off of MultiValue data. It's off of a person table in our seminar management database. And what you're looking at right now is data that has come out of there. It's old data because it's demo data, but you get the idea. And this is a data set created from the person table, and it's got multi-valued event data in it. And so you'll see in the first 3 columns, the last name, the first name, and the home state of the particular person that attended, and then you will see multi-value fields, OI, order type, event, and event date after that. Those are multi-value fields that are in the person table. Before I go any further into the data set, I'd just like to show you a very simple dashboard that I made from that data. And this is called historical customer data. And what this ends up doing for us is it shows us where our customers are centered. You can see, because we're a North Carolina company, our demo data is going to be centered around North Carolina. But one of the things that we can do when we click in, so if we wanted to see perhaps what the data looked like from Florida, we can click in there and we can view the data immediately. And you'll see that we get a subset of the data set that we had before. Once we drill into this data from this dashboard, we also have a variety of export options as well. Another piece of this dashboard was where the most sales came from, and what we're doing is we're totaling up the amount of sales per person. And if we look at the data in here, one of our fields is the original invoice amount, and so it's totaling up all those per person and then finally per state. And so we can get the total amount of money that we got per state in this particular visual. It'll also show you, for instance, we can pivot by specific things. So one of the things we have for all of the events that we had was the relative location of the events. And you can see that out of all the people that are customers in California, there were 136 events that were attended out of state, meaning that they lived in California, but they attended an event outside of California. There were 75 online events and 7 in-state events, and that all came from multi-valued data within the data set. And then also what we can do is we can look and we can see when the individual dates happened for the events, and we can look by year. So if we pivot by year, we can see that 64 of the events happened in 2010 for the Californians. 2012 had 92. So it's a very interactive dashboard that we can get strictly from taking multi-value data right out of the database. I made some calculations on the data that we looked at, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a second, but we made some quick gauges from that data. 40% of our customers have taken an online course. 63% of our customers have taken a course out of state, and 12% have only taken courses in state. And so that's pretty good information for planning. And then we did sales by quarter by relative location. So relative location means that they went out of state, they went online, or they went in state. And these are quarters spanning different years. And so we can see that Q1 for both out of state orders and for well, really for all of them, for in-state orders and for online orders, the first quarter was always the best quarter for each of the over the last over our data set. And I had to do a slightly different data set to get this information, and I'll try to get to that at the end. But let's take a look at our data set really quick and what the components of that data set are. So if I go in and I edit this data set right here, I immediately get a sample from our sample database. That's a live query that pulls back 50 records so that I can see what I'm looking at. When I pull from our person table, I have some criteria, and all that criteria is that this OI multi-value field, which is the order number field on persons, is not empty, because I'm only interested in persons in my database that have taken courses. The fields that I've chosen from the person table are last name, first name, home state, OI, order type, event, and event date, like I said before. In order to choose those fields, I can simply just pull from a table those fields. But I've also linked my person table to an orders table, and I've linked my orders table to an invoice table. And what I ended up pulling from my invoice table is the invoice amount. And you can see right there, the original amount has been added. So I can link between tables in my MultiValue database. That's one of the things that I can do. Another thing that I can do is I can link from my MultiValue database to another data source, and that's where I got the facilities information here. So when you see online the name of the facility, the state, and the country, that's actually linking from my MultiValue data into a spreadsheet, which you can see right here, and that key is the session ID. And so from my spreadsheet, it told me whether a session was online, and if it wasn't online, what the name of the facility was, what the address was, the city, the state, and the zip in the country, that sort of thing. What I did was I imported that spreadsheet into Informer, and then I just made a data source out of it, and I chose these 4 remote fields. Now the session ID, which is the event, is the key or the foreign key that allows me to link. So you can see that even though my foreign key in my row for person is multi-valued, but my data that I'm linking to is single valued, it comes through as multi-valued because it reflects the data structure. And that's really important because this person took 4 classes, one of which was online, and then 3 others. And all of that information is listed here for Mark Stevens in that particular place. So what we can do is we can link to other data sources like spreadsheets. We can link to SQL databases, and those are called remote links, and that's one of our flow steps that we've used here. I also showed you that I linked to a table within my database, which is the original invoice amount. And then I created a bunch of calculated columns. And remember, we talked about relative location before. So I made a calculated field called relative location. And all that calculated field did was I have an array of states, and those states are the locations that the sessions for each person was held in. And so I'm just using a simple JavaScript function that says if the state is empty and the particular row online is true, then return online. Otherwise, if the state equals the person's home state, return in state. Otherwise, they must be out of state. And what that ended up doing for me was that ended up giving me this particular multi-valued field here, where each one of these rows are either online, out of state, or in state, as you can see for Mark. Then I ended up adding a few more calculated fields. If they've ever gone out of state, I just look and I see, are any of the relative locations out of state? If so, then return true. If they've ever taken an online course, if any of the relative locations are online, then return true. And then finally, if they've only taken in state, I wanted to just say that I just figured that out by saying they've never gone out of state and they've never taken an online course. And what that ended up doing was creating my curated data set, which now I can share among people in my organization. Now, a little bit about linking and about where the links come from. If I want to go quickly and look at the data source that I've created, this is from a universe database. And what I've done here is it enables me to model my database in a very clean way so that when my users are looking at this information, they're not going to see a bunch of redundant fields and a bunch of files that they're not interested in. So for instance, if I look at my person table here, and I look at all of the fields that I've got in here, the only ones that I've actually mapped are a few of the attributes. You can see the attribute numbers here. I've got 1 for attribute 1, 1 for 2. While looking at this, the actual amount of fields in this person file is 365. I can take out all of this clutter and I can truly model what the person table actually looks like, where it's got these specific attributes of people. Now you'll also notice that I've got an OI field here, and that is my foreign key that goes to the orders table or the OI table. So what another thing I can do with my mapping is that I can set up links so that I can basically define joins within my multi-value database, even though such a concept of join in a multi-value database doesn't exist, where you had to use correlative fields or I descriptors before to get information from another file into your file. We can create links where you can define those relationships within the mapping and then use them in the data sets. And so, you know, really what we can do is we can create a model of the data that truly reflects the relationships within your multi-value database. And the best part is that once your end users get to see the data set, they don't have to know where that information came from. Now, one other thing that I wanted to say before I open the field up to questions is one of the calculations in my data, in my dashboard, I could not use multi-value data for. I needed my multi-value data to be normalized. And in order to do that, all I had to do was copy this data set by using the copy function, and then add one more flow step to my data set, which ended up normalizing all of the multi-values. So now, let's say I need to do calculations on individual orders. All I had to do was add this one more thing down here at the bottom. Now remember, all of this was defined in my copy, but I added a normalize step where I said, okay, what fields are multi-valued, which ones am I going to split on, and I just identify those, and I get a normalized view of the exact same data. And finally, if you have your data set up and your dashboard's being backed by that data set, I can schedule this data set to refresh on any interval I choose, and I've scheduled it here. This one's only, all it does is it refreshes the customer data set that I've created, meaning it'll run out to the database and pull the data back into the data set. I've got it scheduled to run every day at 5:38 a.m. That could be every hour, that could be every 15 minutes, it could be every month, depending on how much latency your data set can absorb. You can schedule your data set to be run. I can also do a bunch of other things with the schedule. I can have people notified when the data set has been refreshed. I can put information about the data set in there. I can send attachments to people. I can send CSVs. I can send anything from the customer's data set when it's done. And so I really have a lot of different options to deal with this data once it has been extracted out of my multi-value database. So it's for these reasons and many others that I would like to go into with any of you that are interested. We feel that Informer is the best reporting tool and BI solution for multi-valued data.
Awesome,
so
awesome.
I'm going to return back to Sharon.
Thank you, Dre. I appreciate it. That was fantastic. I know we went over a little bit, but not by much. We did pretty good because there's a lot to show. And like I said, this was just a snapshot. So if you want a more comprehensive demo, we're happy to get you scheduled. And also, Andrew recently wrote a white paper that goes into more detail about how Informer 5 works with multi-value. So if you'd like a copy of that, we'd be happy to send that to you. You can just email us at informersales@entrinsik.com. So let me see if there are any questions. Let's see. Okay, one question is it possible to pop visuals into something like a SharePoint?
Absolutely. What you can do with your data set, for instance, with this one, I've created visuals that anyone can use. So for instance, only in state is true. I can go ahead and I can export this data, this visual using an external link. And if I copy that external link and then I open up a new browser, that external link will be immediately show you, where's it? not there. Okay. Let's say I got to do it in here. I'll have to try making a different one. Let's try a different one real quick. Do a column chart. We'll do by country. Do this one. Sorry, this is my development informer, so I probably broke something while I was making it. Let's see here. Let's do HTML. Copy. There we go. Yeah. So you can embed that in your SharePoint application.
Awesome. Let's see. Don't see any other questions. Yes, you can contact send us an email at informersales@entrinsik.com for more detailed pricing information because it's dependent upon your environment. And the price of Informer does include services to help you get started. So if there are no further questions, I want to be super respectful of your time. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to get you pointed in the right direction. We appreciate your time, and we do hope you give us an opportunity to show you what Informer can do for you. So thank you. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, everyone.